Welcome to today's AEM Center webinar. It is the fourth in a series of webinars that we have been delivering for our AEM State Contacts and NIMAC coordinators. Today's topic is Bookshare, and Christine Jones is our presenter. She has titled her presentation Bookshare as a Conduit of NIMAC Source Books. So this is a webinar about Bookshare, specifically in the context of what AEM State coordinators and NIMAC coordinators should know. It's an opportunity for all of you to ask questions of each other, as well as for Christine and those of us here from the AEM Center who may also be able to provide some more information from another angle. So please take advantage of each other, take advantage of Christine's expertise, and of course we on the AEM Center will also be monitoring the chat. We have two additional webinars from accessible media producers as part of this series for AEM State Contacts and NIMAC coordinators. One coming up is from Learning Ally, and the one right after that is American Printing House for the Blind. And the Learning Ally, and I apologize because I just lost my calendar, but Learning Ally is on, it's either April 4th, and actually, you know what, I'm gonna do is put it, that's what I had done, I was gonna do the link. It is April 5th. The Learning Ally for AEM State Contacts and NIMAC coordinators is April 5th at 2 o'clock. And we'll put the link to the Learning Ally in the chat. We do not yet have a link to our events page for American Printing House, but as soon as we do, that will be emailed to you. And it will also be provided on the events page for the AEM Center. So without further ado, Christine, I'm gonna go ahead and put it over onto your end to share Bookshare with us.
Super. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's great to be with all of you. I'm Christine Jones, Senior Education Program Manager here at Benetech, with responsibility for primarily for K-12 outreach throughout the country. So I do work with a lot of districts directly, and I have worked with many of you who are on the webinar as well at the state level, trying to continually improve the access that students have to Bookshare books, and trying to make sure that those at the state level are aware of this very important resource. And I'm excited today to be able to explain not only a little bit about Bookshare and some of the new information that would be of value to all of you, but also to explain how Bookshare is a conduit of NIMAC-sourced textbooks. So let me just quickly give a little background on Bookshare. Let's see, I'm trying to get my slide to move here. Okay, there we go. So Bookshare is the world's largest ebook library for people who read differently due to some kind of a condition like dyslexia or a visual impairment or a physical disability, any number of different physical disabilities that might limit their ability to read in a way that someone typically would who had none of these limitations. So it allows members to read in ways that work for them. So that can include listening to books read aloud, following along with audio and highlighted text. Most of the programs that read Bookshare books provide that capability to see the text and hear it being read aloud at the same time. And all Bookshare books can be accessed in both text and audio. Members can read just in large type if that's all they need to do. They just want the type enlarged, or they can read in Braille, either digital Braille on any number of different Braille devices, or hard copy Braille if they wanted to take a Bookshare file and output it to Braille. I'm going to try to show, hopefully this will work, I'm going to show a quick 1-minute video about Bookshare that helps explain the benefits for everyone. So, and this is something you can share.
Inside every book is a new world, and nothing should keep you from exploring. Whether you're learning to read, studying for an exam, or just having fun, Bookshare helps you read in ways that work for you. Choose your favorite high-quality voice and listen to your. Stay focused with karaoke style. Adjust text to your perfect size, speed, color, and contrast. Choose from over 500,000 titles to read from nearly any device. And the best part? It's free for US students who qualify, and less than $1 a week for qualified adults. So start reading in ways that work for you and explore new worlds with Bookshare.
So that is just a short video, and then you all will get this PowerPoint and you'll resource about Bookshare.
Christine, your audio is breaking up, at least on my end. Are other people losing audio as well? Okay, you sound okay now. Keep it just happened the last probably 20 seconds or so.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. It may have been, there may have been some connection issues while you were using video.
Okay, so you all will have this PowerPoint slide, and you'll have the link to this video, and I ask you to feel free to share it on your state web pages. Along with, we'd be happy to provide you a short description of Bookshare and links to maybe some very specific resources that would be helpful. So that's one of the things I wanted to offer today is we really want to work with you at the state level to provide you with the information that you need to pass on to parents and students and educators in your states to make them aware of books that are available and the many ways to read the books, many of the benefits of Bookshare. So I'd love to work with you on that, and at the end I'll put up my email address, so please feel free to contact me directly, talk about ways that we can help with that. So so Bookshare currently has about 614,000 titles. We add about 5,000 titles each month. This, of course, includes NIMAC source textbooks. Those are a subset of the Bookshare collection, but the collection also includes textbooks from other sources, books for assigned and leisure reading, books for what we call upscaling, so adding new skills such as the ability to learn new computer languages, things like that. There are a number of wonderful how-to books in Bookshare. And then periodicals. We have a connection with NFB Newsline that allows us to provide magazines and newspapers through Bookshare. Bookshare is free. It is funded by the U.S. Department of Ed, Office of Special Education Programs, so it's free for all qualified U.S. students of any age. So that includes not just K through 12, but post-secondary as well. Basically, anyone of any age who is actually a student can and has a qualifying condition can enjoy Bookshare for free. And there are many free ways to read Bookshare books, and there are also many low-cost and commonly available reading options. I'll get into a few of those just for your benefit. This slide has a lot on it, and again, I encourage you to go back and look at it afterward, but these are just some of the ways to read Bookshare books. First of all, on Chromebooks or computers through a tool called Bookshare Web Reader, and I'll demonstrate that for you in a second. There are a couple of nice enhancements available for our web-based reader that even make the reading experience better for students. Books can now be downloaded in Word format. That's one of the choices to download, in which students and teachers can download a book. And we're finding that teachers are starting to bring these into their immersive reader in Word and have the students read that way. There's a tool called CaptiVoice that is a software as a service type of solution, and that works on the desktop. They also have an app for the iPad, so you'll see it listed down under the iPad and iPhone category as well. Also, the iBooks app on every iPad, every Mac computer, and every iPhone reads Bookshare books, and of course that's a free app. Then there are some other apps listed here, Dolphin Easy Reader and Voice Dream Reader on the iPad, and then Go Read and Dolphin Easy Reader and Voice Dream on the Android. So lots of different options for reading. We basically are trying to work with a lot of third-party companies to get them to read Bookshare books, so that the way I like to say it is if a teacher can get a student to read, we want to have a solution for them. We know that for many of these students, reading is the very last thing that they would like to be doing if they had a choice. And so getting them to read at all often is a challenge. So we want to have as many options as possible for them. And as the video alluded to, they can really customize their reading experience. They can pick the app that they like the best, the voice in the app that they like the best. They can pick color combinations in many cases. They can adjust spacing between the letters and between the rows, and colors, and a wide range of things in the tools that read the books to really customize the reading experience. So to qualify for Bookshare, someone has to have been certified by what the law calls a competent authority as having a qualifying condition that hinders reading or processing printed text. These could include learning disability that affects reading, such as dyslexia. A need for reading accommodations is a good leading indicator that there may be a qualification for Bookshare. Low vision or blindness, or a physical disability that affects reading. We have a cross-qualification arrangement with Learning Allies, so if someone has qualified for their service, they automatically qualify for Bookshare and vice versa. So that's something at a state level that you might like to know if you're working with Learning Ally. Educators don't have to think too much about, the qualification issue if they've already signed up with another service. And frankly, the same is true for American Printing House. For the blind, we have a cross-qualification arrangement with them as well. So we leave the decision about qualification up to the educators who work most closely with the students, and we ask that they just review our guidelines and make the best determination as to whether the student has a condition that actually is affecting their ability to read or process printed text. And so we provide all this information, allow them to make that determination. So some additional requirements that are important to mention in the context today of NIMAC sourced books. There are a couple of additional, members who meet the criteria I just mentioned can access everything else in the collection. And as I said, there are over 600,000 titles, only a small subset of which are NIMAC sourced textbooks. I think it's somewhere probably approaching 9,000 or 10,000 of our books are NIMAC sourced books. But to be able to get the NIMAC books specifically, to be able to have access to that subset of the Bookshare collection, students have to get those books from educators. So they cannot go in just independently through their own individual membership and access a NIMAC book unless it has been shared with them by their teacher. So that is part of the stipulation in the NIMAC that was set up by IDEA, that educators have to be the ones to provide the books to students. So a student can access a NIMAC source book through an individual membership or through their own, shared it with them on a reading list, or has downloaded it for them in the past. So basically a teacher has to touch that book and push it to the student for the student to have access. That's one important piece. The other important piece is that to access NIMAC source titles, students must be both Bookshare eligible and have a public school IEP. And so it wasn't identified by the educator as having an IEP when the student was added to Bookshare. The Bookshare system will not allow that student to access the book, even if it was shared with him or her by a teacher. So there's sort of two pieces here. The educator has to be the one providing access, and they can only provide access, or to be able to receive it, the student has to be a student with an IEP. So those are a couple of important points. I wanted to mention at the outset, and I neglected to do so, that my colleague Jen Ofiana from here at Benetech is also on the webinar today, and she is the technical person on our team who works with getting the NIMAC books into the collection. So if you have questions of a more technical nature that I can't answer, she is going to step up and help out. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so there are two types of Bookshare memberships. The first being an organizational membership. So this is the kind that most schools and other organizations to get. And basically an educator or an administrator creates the account, and that requires submitting an order agreement that basically says that they're going to follow Bookshare's guidelines and use the account in a legal way. Then they add their qualified students, and they can add more students anytime they want. They also add other teachers. I didn't mention that here, but they have the ability to add other educators who will also share books with students, so they can, hopefully get more teachers involved. They assign a login to the student, so the students can access that school account independently. But this limits them to books that have been shared with them by their teacher. So they add the students, they assign them a login, and then those students can use that login from any web-based computer to go in and log into their books, or log into their account, and see what books have been shared with them by their teachers and open those books or download them. They can't go in and, let's say they hear about a great book from a peer and they want to go in and read it. They can go in and search for it and find it, but they won't be able to access it until their teacher adds it to a reading list or otherwise shares it with them. The teachers go in and assign books by creating their own reading lists or sharing ready-made reading lists that have been created by Bookshare, and I hope to have a minute to show you those. So that you can understand just the full breadth of books that are available. And then they can help students get a full individual membership in Bookshare that is connected to the school account. And that allows the student then to find and open books of their choice. So as in the scenario I mentioned earlier, if they hear about a book from a peer and they want to read it, with a full individual membership, they can actually find and open that book on their own without having to go through their teacher. This level of access does require a parent signature for students under age 18, but it can be done digitally, and it's actually a pretty simple process. And so we really encourage that. We sort of encourage a two-step process. We encourage students first to be given this sort of limited access to Bookshare, books that have been shared with them by their teachers, so that they can get comfortable with how Bookshare works and how to access books. And then when they're comfortable, we encourage getting them that full individual membership. We do find that students read a lot more, many exponentially more books with an individual membership than they do with just a login to the school account. The second type of membership is an individual membership. That's what I was mentioning before. So that can be obtained either through their school membership. There's a way that the teacher can help the student get a full membership. But in addition, a student or a parent can sign up for Bookshare for an individual membership in Bookshare separate and apart from the school. So if they just wanted to do it on their own and they haven't contacted the school about Bookshare, they can go in and sign up. They will, of course, need to sign, just as in the case of the other individual membership that comes through the school, the parent needs to approve it. But they also have to submit a signed proof of disability form. And this is something they're prompted to do as part of the sign-up process. So that step is omitted when a student gets to an individual membership through a school, because we know that the school has certified their proof of disability. So that is not needed. But when a parent or a student signs up for Bookshare on their own, without having gone through a school, we do ask that they provide a signed proof of disability form. Then they can subscribe to the ready-made reading list or create their own. However, they cannot access NIMAC source books through that individual account that they've created on their own. But if they do eventually get that account connected to school, educators can push NIMAC books to them through that account. So I talked already about getting the individual membership that's connected to the school account, which will allow educators to provide those access to those NIMAC books. So quickly, let me get into some explanation of how Bookshare works with the NIMAC, and I do very much hope that I'll have a chance to demonstrate a couple of things for you toward the end here. But just a little bit more information for you about Bookshare's role with regard to the NIMAC, and it's determined by the state and what permission or what arrangement we have with that state. So most states have named us, Benetech, which is the parent company of Bookshare, an authorized user of the NIMAC. And you'll see at the bottom of the slide a link to a particular page on the Bookshare site where those states are listed in case you ever want to go back and check, or you want to refer someone to it. But the states are listed here. These states have named Bookshare as an authorized user. In the states where we haven't been named an authorized user, we function as what's called an accessible media producer, which I'm sure you all are very familiar with that term. And so I'll walk now through how each of those, how we interact with the NIMAC in each of those two cases. And I will say that while we totally respect whatever process works best for each state, and we're happy to work with states in whatever way they want to operate with us, either as an authorized user or accessible media producer, and in both cases our services are free. We do feel like there is some efficiency in us serving as an authorized user, and I'll explain that in a minute here. So in the states in which Bookshare is an authorized user, an educator with a Bookshare account contacts Bookshare directly to request a book for a student. And I'll quickly show you on the Bookshare website where they would do that. They would go to bookshare.org, and then they click on Help Center, which is one of the tabs at the top, the second tab from the left. They're going to see a link here that says Request a Book. So they have to be logged in to request it. I'm not logged in, or I'm not logged into an account that would allow me to request a book right now, but they get a book request form. They fill that out. I can't do it at the moment, but it asks them, the title, the ISBN, some of the basic information about the book. And we like that if they have already found it in the NIMAC, we ask them to specify that. So and if they haven't specified that it's in the NIMAC, that's one of the first things we always do, especially if the book being requested is a textbook, or we think it might be a book that would be in the NIMAC. Our team will always search the NIMAC for it if the student for whom it's being requested is NIMAC eligible. And so we'll search the NIMAC for the book. If the book is in there, we're able to obtain it on behalf of the state who's given us permission to do so for the educator or the student. And then Bookshare converts the book, the NIMAS file, to a DAISY file and adds it to the collection. And more student-ready formats are available from that. So as I mentioned about Microsoft Word being a download format, they can also download the book in BRF, which stands for Braille Ready format. They can also download it in a couple of different audio options. So there are several different ways that the book can be accessed. And then Bookshare notifies the requesting educator that the book has been added. And I believe we also notify the state coordinator too, that the book has been added and is available. And then the educator shares the book with the qualified student. So all of that happens within about a week time. I actually forgot to list that on here, but a week is about the average turnaround time. Often we can actually do it even more quickly than that. So when the request comes in and we're able to just go directly to the NIMAC and get the book on behalf of the educator and the student, it's a pretty quick process. So the other alternative is when Bookshare serves as an accessible media producer, so that the educator would go through that same process, request a book. As I showed you earlier, they would find that link, they would request a book, and maybe it's a NIMAC source book. However, if they're coming from a state where we are an accessible media producer and not a NIMAC coordinator, not an authorized user, they'll receive email from us that asks them to contact their state NIMAC coordinator or authorized user and have them assign the book to Bookshare. So we don't have the permission in that case to go to the NIMAC directly and get the book. So we ask them, please ask your state person to assign the book to Bookshare. So then the book is, when they when they do that, we are notified of that, and then the book is automatically sent to Bookshare. So the time involved there just depends on how long it takes for the state person to assign the book to Bookshare, and if there are a large pile of requests coming in, or if the state person is, as we know in many cases, wearing multiple hats. Sometimes these requests are a little bit challenging to get to. But as soon as that is assigned, then it comes over, and then we convert it just like we did the file that we obtained directly from the NIMAC. We add it to the collection, and then more student-ready formats are available. We notify the requesting educator and the state contact that the book has been added and is available in the collection, and then the educator can go in and share the book with the student. I think I'm going to pause there. Yeah, actually, I've gotten through most of the meat of this. I do want to do some demonstrations, but even before that, I want to just check the chat and see how we're doing on questions. Let's see. So I'm just going to look through the. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Christine, I was just going to say that not a lot of questions have come up, but I think now that we've paused, perhaps people have been waiting for a break to maybe enter a question or a comment in the chat.
Yep.
Something that you just said that prompted a question from me that maybe some insights from the people here, because they are AEM State Contacts and NIMAC coordinators, is the process that they have seen with educators in their states reaching out to them for information about Bookshare, about requesting books from Bookshare, questions that you all may be receiving around the distinction between Bookshare as an authorized user versus an accessible media producer. If any of you all in your experience have any feedback from Bookshare on that, or just checking in with each other about how that process works, if it's been successful for you, if there have been some challenges around communicating about Bookshare with educators in your states, or is it working really well?
Yeah, certainly too, and on our end to make it easy. Please help happy with you if your state is not an authorized, willing and able to.
Christine, you're breaking up a little bit again, just in the last 10 to 15 seconds.
Okay. I'm getting a note that my internet connection is a little unstable, and I'm not sure why. How is that? Is that better?
Yeah, yep, you're back.
Okay. So I was saying that we're happy to work with any states where we're not currently an authorized user of the NIMAC. If there's an interest or a willingness to make us an authorized user, it's a pretty simple process. We can help you the form that the NIMAC would submit or would give you, and you would just we can provide you with some information that needs to go on that form, and then you submit the form to the NIMAC. So it's a pretty straightforward process. And as I was saying before, go ahead.
Oh, I was just Jane just made a comment in the chat that Bookshare is the AMP in Rhode Island. She says I usually do the request when I receive it. So she's submitting a request to Bookshare, and she says she usually gets an email from you all within an hour.
Yes, and Jane, thank you.
Pretty good track record.
Yeah, we know you're really on it, so thank you very much. We appreciate that. And I will say that we're happy to work with state coordinators. Some of the reason why we've heard that folks didn't want to make Benetech or Bookshare an authorized user of the NIMAC is they want to have the visibility into who's actually requesting books. And we're happy to provide some reports to state leaders to make sure that you still have that information. So just wanted to mention that so that hopefully that isn't, the main reason why you're not naming Bookshare as an authorized user. Let me do this. Let me go into, get into a couple of demonstration type of things here. I am trying to get out of the slide presentation and I don't know. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and then share again because I'm trying to get to where I can get out. There we go. Get out of my PowerPoint. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen again. And I'm going to go just into a couple of demonstrations. So let's see, let me go here to, this is a book that I brought up from a student's account. It's the book Wonder, and it's in Bookshare Web Reader, which is our web-based tool. And I've turned on Read and Write for Google Chrome. This is a third-party tool that is a Chrome extension that works very nicely with Bookshare. And I just wanted to quickly show you what it's like for a student to read this book on their end. So I'll just read a little excerpt here. Well, this was working earlier. Those of you who were early,
It did work. So not that that matters. I've been in your position, and it doesn't really matter that it worked 15 minutes ago. But go ahead and talk through it to give people an idea of how this works.
Okay, so I've got this. If this were working properly, when I hold my cursor and I use the hover speech tool and I hold my cursor over here, it reads it out loud. Let me just try one other way of doing this here. Okay, it's just not wanting to cooperate. Of course. All right, so let me do this. I'll turn Read and Write off and I will play the book just in Bookshare Web Reader with our...
I didn't answer. Is that okay? August, Mom repeated.
Okay, so that's just an example of within Bookshare Web Reader to have the book read out loud.
Night mode.
Okay, well that's
full screen.
Encouraging. Let's see if we can get this to work now. Oh, cracks me up. Okay, well, what I like about the Read and Write for Google Chrome tool is that it offers a little bit better contrast option. It offers a number of different voices. If you look here at the options, there are a lot of voices to choose from.
Table of contents. Table of. Previous.
There
Previous. Next.
Stop that. There are a lot of voices to choose from. There are the opportunity to add, for students to add their own highlighting and that kind of thing. And Don Johnston's Snap and Read is another Chrome extension that we recommend that lays on top of our web reader and adds a lot of additional functionality. So that was what I was hoping to show you there. Let's see. Yeah, it's just, I can, you know what, I will try. Okay, I'm going to try going out and coming back in and see if it makes any difference.
Back to bookshare.org.
Turn off the Read and Write tool.
Tape.
Okay. So the student, by the way, opened the book just by logging into their account, finding the book, and selecting this button that says Read Now. So that's a pretty easy process. And let's see, we'll give it one more try. And
Is that okay, August? Mom repeated. I looked at her now. I wanted her to see how mad I was at her. But then I saw...
Okay, so that's an example of the book being read with Read and Write. And as I said, there are lots of different voice options. I'll try another one here just to see, so that you can get what some of the student options are. Well, now it's not wanting to cooperate again. Okay, well, at least you got to see it one time. I think it has something to do with my internet connection. I'm in a different room. Benetech that I normally do webinars in, and I think it's causing problems for me today. But
settings.
Okay.
Settings.
All right.
Night mode off. Night mode.
Well, that's
Full screen off.
Okay, stop. Okay. Well, let's see if it was going to work.
Is that okay, August?
Okay, there we go.
Mom repeated. Mom repeated. I wanted her to see how mad I was at her. But then I saw her face and just nodded.
Okay. Sorry, I was moving the cursor around. That's why it was jumping around a little bit. But so that gives you an idea. So the student can just open up the book in this web-based reading tool, either read it just by itself or with one or two of these different tools laid on top of it. That's just one of many ways to read the books. As I mentioned, the books read on iBooks, on the iPad, as well as other apps, and they read on Android tablets and, of course, Chromebooks, and pretty much every technology that schools are using these days. They can access Bookshare books. So have any new webinars, or sorry, any new questions come in?
Victoria in Florida, she had a comment, and I missed exactly what this was related to. So maybe Victoria can restate what it was that Christine said that that was mentioned. Victoria's comment was, "I'm so glad you mentioned that, Christine. That has been a concern." So
I think maybe about the state, probably about the state's insight into who's, so if they give up that control, if they give up, if they name Bookshare as an authorized user, they want to still be able to have the visibility into who's getting the books. So
yeah, so that's exactly what it was. She related to the requestable reports on who was requesting books.
Yep.
And then Penny says that New Hampshire is very pleased with our partnership with Bookshare. We find in New Hampshire that the training can be challenging because more and more regular educators are needing the information, not just special educators. So it's a great thing, but we find we need to constantly change.
Right, and that's an excellent point, and something we're trying to get on top of as well, because we are familiar with the fact that many of these students are served in inclusive environments now, and that works out well for a variety of reasons. But what that means is the teachers who are teaching them are not necessarily trained. They don't come from a special education background and haven't necessarily worked with assistive technology or with students who need those kinds of accommodations. And so we are actually going to more general ed conferences these days. We were at FETC earlier this year. It's now called the Future of Education Technology conference. We are out to some other gen ed conferences later in the year. So we are doing what we can to get the word out to more general education teachers about this resource. But we would love to work with any of you on how best to get that information out in your states, because we do find that it's important for them to know about the resource and to have some familiarity with it, so that it doesn't become just one more thing they have to add to their long list of new things to learn or new technologies to master.
And a correction is that Penny is actually Mary Lane. So she's under an alias today.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary. Hello. And Jane says they can find a lot of videos on YouTube.
Oh, yes. I'm sure that there are a lot, and we love it. Educators are some of the the most prolific producers of how to, and that is terrific. We occasionally come across ones that aren't entirely accurate, so we do mention that. But Bookshare itself has a channel on YouTube that we do recommend. And if you were to get things from the Bookshare channel on YouTube, you would be able to be fairly confident that they are accurate. Though even with us, our technology, things change so quickly at Bookshare. I'm just going to show you the Bookshare channel, that we too have to often go in and update our own videos. So, but here's the Bookshare channel on YouTube, and there are quite a few great videos here that we highly recommend that address different aspects of Bookshare, different pieces of it, and on the Bookshare website, a list of those how-to videos. Let me go back to the Help Center, and then under Training and Resources, you'll see a whole area called Video Tutorials, and above that is Brochures and How-to Guides. I think we're doing some reorganizing of these pages, so soon I hope they'll be even easier for you all to find, but there are a number of tutorials to illustrate different processes on the Bookshare website. How to that have. Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes, it's a little bit choppy, but we're understanding where you are and what you're pointing out.
Okay. Sorry about that. So there are how-to guides, and there are also videos, both of these sections on the Bookshare site.
Okay, great. A comment that Mary made right as when we were identifying who she is was that New Hampshire's so excited about universal design for learning, and not to forget that accessibility is built in the design. And I think that dovetails nicely with the conversation that you were just having around the need to include both special ed and general ed in the development of a curriculum that includes accessibility, because in universal design for learning, of course, there's the goals, the methods, the materials, and the assessment, and how important the considerations around accessibility need to be in that material selection, creation, procurement, any way that the material is going to be provided to students in a curriculum. And I think that's a nice focal point for both special and general education teachers to come together around accessibility and curriculum.
Yes, I think that's a great point. I think starting sometimes with some teaching on universal design is a great background, because it opens up educators to that idea of teaching, providing materials in I think, what is the actual term in UDL, teaching something about diverse learners, right?
Right, learner variability.
Learner variability, right. So it opens their mind to the idea that not every student can process information in the same way. And so they want to have, multiple ways of getting information across. And, the best educators are thinking of, what is the core lesson that you're hoping students get from a curriculum or a lesson, and can that same understanding be gained? Message of is there or an pictorial that to move in that just opens up their thinking and their framework to be able to understand how Bookshare can fit in as an alternative for students who have difficulty printed text, that they need it in another form. And so, Bookshare starts a lot more sense in that context.
Great.
Great idea.
Okay, are there any additional questions, comments? I know, Christine, you probably have some additional things to share with people in a wrap up. We do have 12 minutes before the hour is up, so that would be a great time to ask some concluding comments, some questions.
Sure.
Christine, if you have more information to share, that's great too.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I wanted to just reiterate that we're very eager to work with state leaders in whatever way works for you, and to provide information that you can then put on your websites to be able to, have state information available, readily available on Bookshare. And we work with state leaders in a variety of different ways. There's a couple of states that are working very closely with us to integrate Bookshare into sort of their state portals. Those have had varying degrees of success. other states, work with us to make sure that we can do state level information dissemination in whatever format that takes, whether it's through an email or through a statewide webinar, or there are times when we have an opportunity to come to a statewide conference and present. And then, following that up with information being available on the website. And then, basically, we can come up with a lot of different ways to work with educators, with the state leaders, to make sure that you all can provide the information about Bookshare to your schools and districts, because it is a free resource. The collection is huge, as I mentioned, 600,000+ titles in a wide variety of genres, available 24/7 because it's a website, and available in a lot of different formats that work for students. So we definitely want to get the word out. Please communicate with us to let us know what we can do to make that process just make it more available in your states.
Great, thank you so much, Christine. No additional questions or comments have come in, so we will start closing down today's webinar by thanking Christine Jones again for joining us from Bookshare. And as you all know, Bookshare is available to you 24/7 in multiple ways. Their service, in particular on bookshare.org. Christine is very responsive. We've already heard from Rhode Island that they typically hear back from Bookshare within an hour. So you have a great ally in making sure that students in your state get their materials in a timely manner with response times like that. And we did have Jane has a question. What about math problems in Braille?
Oh, thanks, Jane, for throwing at the very end. That is probably a bigger conversation than we have time to get into at the moment. It's a complicated issue. There is no real easy answer to that. So I actually am going to defer that question for another conversation. But Jane, I'd be happy to have a phone call with you or some email about that.
Yeah, and that's also, thanks so much for asking that, Jane, because when questions like that are coming up during this series for AEM State Contacts and NIMAC coordinators, we are tucking those away for future topics for webinars to continue this webinar series, or to identify certain topics that are of interest to the AEM State Contacts and NIMAC coordinators. So thank you for asking that. And as Christine said, Christine, I was afraid you were going to say I'll defer to Cynthia instead of I'll defer to another time for a conversation. Because we're not skirting the issue, because there are some resources, and there are important discussions to have around math and Braille, and we'll put that in our pocket for another conversation. So thank you for raising that as a concern.
Sounds great. Yep.
And just a reminder that we have Learning Ally joining us for this webinar series on April 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and American Printing House May 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So those are the two most immediate webinars coming up as part of our series. All of them are being recorded, and they'll be archived for future reference. And we hope that you'll join us again for Learning Ally. Leslie has dropped the link to the survey into the chat. You'll see it back at 3:51 p.m. Oh, and she just dropped it again. Thank you. She's dropping it like breadcrumbs. Thank you, Leslie. So please complete the survey. Of course, having these conversations during the webinar is really helpful. But of course, your feedback, including comments and suggestions, are really greatly appreciated. We use that feedback, and apply it to our technical assistants.
Great. And I will send you all, Cynthia, this PowerPoint just as soon as we get done so that you can then post it and share it with everyone.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'll get that to Leslie and she'll put it on the events page for this webinar. And Leslie, if you want to drop that, the link to the event page for today so that people have it, and that's where they'll find the PowerPoint, I'd say by probably by tomorrow. Great, thanks, Leslie. And there was a question about, Jane asking, will we be sending out the link for Learning Ally? So I think the announcement went out, but we'll resend it. And we'll have, and as a reminder, there's no registration for this series. These are, you know, the series of webinars is not closed, but we want to make sure that we are delivering this specifically for the community of AEM State Contacts and NIMAC coordinators. So there's no registration for them, but we do send out the invitations with the links to join the webinars.
Excellent.
Great. Oh, and Mary, what link are you not seeing? And Leslie, looks like that Zoom link, does that go to the webinar for Learning Ally? Great. Okay, so Leslie, the Zoom link that she just dropped at 3:56, that will take you to the Learning Ally webinar on April 5th, 2 p.m. Eastern. Oh, and the survey link is what Penny was looking for. Leslie's so fast. All right, does everybody have what they need? Links to Learning Ally, links to the survey. Please give us lots of feedback so that we can continue to be responsive and reach out to Bookshare or the AEM Center anytime. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all.